Welcome to Converts for Unity Live, first Facebook Live, alhamdulillah. So we're just getting things set up, and inshallah soon we're going to be hearing from our brother Jesse. He's going to be talking about Canadian Islamic Wealth, his company, and the options that Muslims have in Canada, alhamdulillah, for the Muslims to invest in a halal way. And in case you didn't know, inshallah, you can hang around, and inshallah, the brother will be here soon to come and present his business to us and present the options that we might not have known we have, alhamdulillah. So
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Jesse, and I am a financial advisor with Canadian Islamic Wealth. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning in, and I want to thank Sister for inviting me to this converts group. Not sure if you can tell, but I am a convert myself, a revert. And one of the things I have done, and I've tried to work at doing as a convert, is to create Islamic finance options. So I'm going to go over a little bit of my story as to kind of, how I got into this, and just go into some of the basics about Islamic finance and investing so that Muslims across Canada can kind of have an idea as to what their options are and how they can kind of, look into things, that type of thing. So, when I reverted to Islam, this was September 2014. So I have been Muslim for 6 years. I was working at a large financial institution. And upon reverting to Islam, I started to look at my community to sort of see if there was a way for them to kind of join us at the bank that I was working at, see if they wanted to invest, see if I could help them with wealth management. But I kept getting the same answer. No, we can't do this because it goes against our religion. And so after kind of hearing this, I started to look into Islamic finance to sort of see if there was a way I could learn to do this and bring my clients on board. Alhamdulillah, after about a year of studying, I started to look into Islamic finance. I started to do my own practice with National Bank Financial, and then I started to get clients who were Muslim looking to invest with us. Now, I moved over to Investors Group IG Wealth Management in 2015 and continued to grow my practice at that point. And the interesting thing is throughout that entire time, walaikum salam TikTok, throughout that time, I kept getting people, even within our Muslim community, saying, you know what, this is never going to work. Muslims are never going to do this. Why should they go with you who's brand new to Islam, and why should they trust you, and different things like that. But alhamdulillah, a whole bunch of people kept telling me, don't do it, don't keep going forward. But Allah was with me the whole time, and I just kept hearing in my head, keep going, keep trying. And alhamdulillah, in 2018, at Investors Group, at IG Wealth Management, walaikum salam, I got an award actually for being a top producer, and I was strictly only doing Islamic investing. And then a whole bunch of the Muslims who were telling me, oh, don't do this, all of a sudden they kept saying, hey, Assalamu alaikum, we offer Islamic investing too, right? So more people started to do it. I was a little bit skeptical, but at the same time, alhamdulillah, like I was able to show other Muslim financial advisors that this is indeed a possibility. But as I went on, with IG Wealth Management, it came to a point where I realized that, there is always going to have to be a situation where we have to either decide whether or not we're dealing with, whether we are dealing in the client's best interest or the firm's best interest, right? Because within, these standard firms within the Canadian system, a client who comes in and says, I'm a low risk investor, generally speaking, they put you into something interest based, right? And because my clients, yes, I can answer questions, but I'm just going to go through my little speech here, and then you can jump in with your questions. So what's going to happen, what I said was there's no way for us to invest a client's money who's low risk in something halal, because they require you to invest them in something interest based, right? And so I kept butting heads with the people at IG, going back and forth. And then it finally came to a point where I realized, listen, we've got to do our own thing, right? Because at the end of the day, that this wasn't a choice, right? It's not a choice to have to choose like, okay, well, my Muslim clients are low risk, but they don't want any interest. So I either put them in interest and lose them as clients, or I put them in something halal and the firm gets mad at me, right? So we had to do our own thing. And that's why we started Canadian Islamic Wealth. And so Canadian Islamic Wealth, we started this in 2019. Good job keeping everything halal. We started this in 2019. End of the year 2019. We've been in business for just over a year. We manage nearly $10 million of halal investments, and that's growing every day, every week. More and more people are realizing that this is in fact an option. And alhamdulillah, like yesterday, we got articles published across a whole bunch of different things. His sister sometimes sees my videos on TikTok, and she may have seen me doing my like a happy dance that we got that in there the other day. So alhamdulillah, that's kind of where we're at, offering halal options to Muslims across the country. So I am going to start answering some questions. If there are no questions, then I can sort of launch into the basics of halal investing. So are there any questions at this point? So the first question I get here over on TikTok: what are the average returns you see from halal investing? So from halal investing, and this is actually a really common thing that I see, we get a lot of people saying, oh, well, you're going to be sacrificing potential profit with halal investments. The answer to that is actually no. One of the halal investment funds that I use has averaged around 12% a year over the last decade, right? Most of your standard run-of-the-mill funds you can get at the bank will do maybe 6 or 7%. Now, I'm not saying that you can guaranteed get 12% returns every single year forever. Nobody knows. Allah knows, right? But those funds do compete with other funds that are not based around Islamic investing. The other thing to keep in mind, guys, is that if you are doing an investment at a bank or a conventional style investment, they don't have specific debt rules. So within a halal portfolio, you have to abide by certain debt rules. Like a company can't have debt that exceeds 30% of its total value. A company can't have too much accounts receivables. And these things actually minimize the risk inside of an investment, right? Because if a company has too much debt, when we see what happened last year, right, everything shuts down, markets close, everything like that. Companies with debt, well, those debt collectors still come knocking and say, hey, we want our payments. But if you don't have debt, or if you have low amounts of debt, you're going to be able to survive and sustain yourself for a longer period of time. So generally speaking, when we see market turbulence like we did, this time last year, halal investments tend to do better just because they don't have, that excessive amount of debt. So do we have any other questions as of right now? Okay, I'll keep talking then. So how do we know what makes an investment halal? How do we determine whether the investments are halal? So I follow kind of a 3-step process in my financial planning company. Okay, we got a question over here on TikTok. My question is, if we can have certain documents to help others in halal investments with certified scholars. I'm not really sure what you mean, but there are certainly, fatwas and different rulings that have been given that give these type of parameters. And you can find that in the AOFI guidebook, which, I'll post about that a little bit later. But we go into how do we determine whether investment is halal? So we follow kind of the 3-step process. The first step we get into is we look at, are we dealing with something that's interest-based, or are we dealing with something that's profit-based, right? And so generally speaking, when you are in front of an advisor at the bank, what ends up happening is they'll recommend some fund to you, right? And so if you are not very specific about what you're asking for, it is likely you're going to be invested in something haram. So a lot of the time we'll look at this, we get clients who come in from the bank and they've said, okay, well, I can't take interest, right? But can you take dividends? Yes, I can take dividends, but it depends on where the dividend's coming from. So if you're at the bank, you're going to hear words like fixed income. A portion of your portfolio is going to be in fixed income. If your portfolio contains any fixed income, you need to run. You're dealing with something that's interest-based, and you cannot move on to the next step. So are we dealing in interest? Are we dealing in profit? If you're at the bank, they'll use a word like equity. If you are dealing with equity, then we know that we have a profit-based investment. It's time to move on to the second step. We've got a question over here. What's the minimum investment to invest with Canadian Islamic Wealth? we have no minimums. The only requirement is that you do things in a halal way. We have been approached by other people who want us to invest in banks and weapon stocks and different things like that. Any advisor in the country will help you do that, but we will not. So the first step, we determine that it is a profit-based investment. Then we move on to the second step. The second step is to determine how the company is in fact making their profit. How are they making their profit? This is really important, guys, because when you are at the bank and when you're sitting across from an advisor at the bank, they're going to say, oh, well, this doesn't deal in any interest. They can give you dividends and they can give you profit, right? Okay, but what are you invested in? So we look at things, are you invested in banks? Are you invested in insurance? Is it invested in different things like, alcohol, gambling, tobacco, adult entertainment? All of these things are completely unacceptable, right? And so, after we've done that first screening, we move on to the second screening. If it is in any of the companies that I mentioned, we know we've got something that is, in fact, haram. We can, of course, make money off of science and technology, healthcare, natural resources, infrastructure, these type of things. So that is how we determine whether we've got the first two steps. The third step is obviously screening for the ratios. As I mentioned before, a company can have excessive amounts of debt. A company can have excessive amounts of accounts receivables. Once all three of those steps have been hit, now we move on to, okay, we've got a halal investment. What do we do with that money, right? That's the question. We know we've got a halal investment. Moving on to the next step. By the way, before we move on to that portion, I just want to say that if you are invested at the bank or if you're sitting across from an advisor from wherever and they tell you that something is halal, before they invest your money, they are required to give you what's called the fund facts, right? This is law. This is the rules in Canada. They're required to give you something called the fund facts. And in those fund facts, you'll be able to determine from the top 10 holdings. Hi, thank you for joining. From the top 10 holdings, whether or not the fund you're invested in is even remotely close to being halal. So, if they've got bonds in there, it's out, right? If they've got banks in there, it's out. If they've got insurance in there, it's out, right? So you got to make sure that you're looking. You got to make sure that you get the fund facts and that you examine them for yourself. And if you need help with this type of thing, you absolutely can let us know. CanadianIslamicWealth.com. Book an appointment. We will happily go over your portfolio for you and let you know what's halal and what isn't. And every once in a while, we do come across something that, even though it's at the bank, and even though we don't want to, we want to tear them down, and we want to, kick their butt, and we want every Muslim across the country investing their money at Canadian Islamic Wealth at some point, inshallah. But if your advisor there, you like him, and he does in fact have you something in that's halal, we will tell you, right? So, and an example of this, last year at this time, we were in Calgary and we did a seminar there, and a brother came up and showed us one of the portfolios he had, and it was in fact halal. It was this green energy investment fund, fantastic fund. And we told him, like, look, if you want to work with us, we'd be more than happy to have you, but this investment that you do have is halal, so you don't need to worry about that. So then after we've done that, we look at, okay, so yeah, after we've done that, the sister Sakina has left, but I think she said she's going to come back. So look, so what happens is, once we've determined we've got something halal, now we have to look and see, okay, what do we do with our money? Where do we invest in? That kind of all depends on you, what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve. By the way, just this is what I'm talking about is Canada based only. For some of my people who are on TikTok, I know there are people who are in other jurisdictions and things like that. But I want to make it clear, like, I'm specifically talking Canada. We are going to launch something in the US Q4 2021. So inshallah, we might be able to help folks in the US as well. But for now, I'm specifically talking Canada. So it depends on what your goals are. What are you trying to achieve? What's your situation, right? So the first thing and one of the most common types of investments, yes, we do work with folks in Toronto, alhamdulillah. We've got lots of clients there. So the first step, let's talk about RSP. So this is the registered retirement savings plans. Yeah, I'm on a Zoom call as well as talking to you guys on TikTok. I'm killing two birds with one stone. So We start with RSPs. RSPs, basically, they are, you can use 18% of your income or about $27,000, whichever of the two are lower. And what happens in this situation is it reduces how much taxes you have to pay. So for example, if you earn $100,000 a year, $50,000 a year, you get 18% of that income as RSP contribution room. Now, if you put that money in there, the full 18,000, the full 9,000, whatever the case may be, it'll lower how much the government has seen as though you've made, right? So for example, let's just use 100,000. Let's make our math really easy. 100,000, you put 18,000 into the RSP. Now, all of a sudden, the government is only taxing you on $82,000 as opposed to the full 100,000. So you end up saving yourself about $8,000 in taxes, give or take, depending on the province that you live in. Now, the good thing here is this money, it's not stuck. So a lot of Muslims refrain from investing in RSPs because A, they want to know it's not halal to sell drugs. So what they want to do is they want to, let me rephrase here. So you have your money in the RSP, you want to put your money in the RSP. A lot of Muslims, they get kind of tripped up about adding to their RSP because they feel as though their money is stuck, right? They feel their money is stuck inside their RSP, but you can pull up to $35,000 out for your first-time homebuyers plan. So if you are married, there's you and your spouse, you guys can have up to $70,000 in an RSP without worrying that it's stuck in there and you can't use it for the down payment on a home or whatever the case may be. So that's something to absolutely keep in mind. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for joining. The other thing is if you don't use the full amount of contribution room. So let's take that $100,000 example. You get 18,000 of contribution room. If you haven't used that full 18,000, it adds on top of itself, and you can catch up with that in future years. So 100,000, you didn't use the full 18,000 this year, you didn't use the full 18,000 next year. That means you've got $36,000 of contribution room. RSP, it is a fantastic tool if you're saving up to buy your first house, and it is a fantastic tool for longer term retirement goals. Okay. The other most common account that we deal with is the Rrsp. This is the Registered Education Savings Plan. And so every single one of you, if you have children, you can put up to $2,500 per year into your kids' Rrsp and get a $500 grant. So for every dollar you put into the Registered Education Savings Plan, you get a 20% grant from the government. This is up to $500 a year. As I said, $7,200 over the lifetime of a child. And each child has the opportunity to take advantage of this. To give you an idea of the power behind the Registered Education Savings Plan, if you have a newborn baby and you start and you put $175 in per month from the day they're born until the time they reach the age of 18, you'll have put in about $36,000. You'll have gotten $7,200 from the government, and on top of which the profit you earn from halal investments should land you somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000 to $80,000 of money for your kids' education. So this is something to keep in mind. In the United States, I'm not 100% sure. I know you guys have your own program, and I am going to be doing some research to give you guys some options there in the United States. The third main account, and this is the one that everybody should open and should take advantage of. In my opinion, this is the most powerful savings tool that we have as Canadians, and that is the tax-free saving account. So the tax-free saving account, for my American counterparts, this is the Roth IRA. You can put about $6,000 per year into your tax-free saving account. If you've been over the age of 18 since 2009, you have approximately $70,000 of Tfsa contribution room. The beautiful thing about the Tfsa is that it is flexible in the sense that you can put money in anytime, you can take money out anytime. And the only thing you need to really worry about is if you've maxed out your Tfsa, let's say you have put in that full 70,000. If you were to pull that money out today, you'd have to wait until January 2022 to put that money back in. But all the investments inside the Tfsa can be halal, similar to the Rrsp, the Rrsp. The main thing you need to understand that is powerful of the Tfsa is all the profit you earn is tax-free. So again, if you max out that $6,000 every single year from the time let's say you're 25 until you reach the age of 65, there is going to be well over $1.5 million there for you to use and to retire on. But once again, it's not stuck. So if things come up in the meantime, you can dip into that. You can use it for down payment. You can use it for your trip to Hajj. And we do use the TFSA in a great way to help clients save and go to Hajj. So those are sort of the three main tools that we use to help our clients invest in the halal way, along with that screening process that I mentioned before. So what I'm going to do, I'll just open it up to people for questions, and I'll try to answer it. I'm kind of going back and forth between Zoom, Facebook Live here, and TikTok. So if there are questions, let me know. I'm here to answer them. Excuse me. So yeah, ask away. Ask me your questions. You can also type your questions and ask. It looks like people are on mute here. Does anyone have any questions? How does the TFSA and Rrsp work with Zakat? This is a great question, actually. So TFSA basically how it would work is however much money is in the TFSA would be eligible for Zakat as long as it's over the nisab, which is about $5,500 US, about 7,000 Canadian or so. So you'd have to pay Zakat on whatever amount is inside the TFSA. With the Rrsp, it is a little bit different. The way there's a few methods to calculate it out, but the one I am most comfortable with is if you were to cash out your full Rrsp today, how much would it be worth after taxes, right? So let's say, for example, you earn $100,000 a year, your Rrsp is worth $50,000, right? If we pull that full Rrsp out today, it'll be taxed at approximately 43%, right? So there'll be, 28,000 or so that's left over. So you pay Zakat on the amount that would be left over after tax, 2.5% on that. That's the method I'm most comfortable with and the one that makes the most sense for Canada, in my opinion. Are there any other questions? Ask me your questions, guys. Don't be shy. You can absolutely, book a call with us. We do have more educational content on our website, CanadianIslamicWealth.com. I've made some videos on investing in Rrsps, TFSAs. That kind of goes over what I talked about, but it puts it in a little bit more perspective. We also have articles. How long do you have to pay back the $35,000 if you take from your Rrsp for a first-time home buyer? Fantastic question. So after you've done that, you have 2 years where you don't have to pay anything, but then after that, you pay back 1/15 every year, for 15 years. So I'm just pulling up my calculator here because I want to make sure I get this right. 35,000 divided by 15 divided by 12. So you end up paying about $200 a month back after that 2-year period for the first time home buyer plan. Do you guys have any questions? TikTok? Are there any more questions? Feel free to ask away. And by the way, if something I said wasn't clear, ask for clarification. Ask your questions. Do I live in, no, I don't live in Minnesota. I live in Winnipeg, Canada. But we are going to be launching something in the US Q4 2021. So inshallah, we will be able to help folks in Minnesota and the United States down the road. And yes, I know. On our honeymoon, we passed through Minnesota and visited the 2 Somali malls that live there, my wife and I. Ask your questions, guys. If you have any Islamic finance questions, ask away. Yeah. Are there any more questions? All right. So I guess I'll just wrap it up here. If you have any questions, ask them now. Otherwise, you can message me on Facebook. You can find our website, again, CanadianIslamicWealth.com. You can download our free ebook there. You can book a free call with us if you want some more clarity into how we can help you and build a financial plan for you, all those things. But Jazakallah khair. Thank you guys so much for attending. And I need to thank Sister Sakina there for arranging this. But inshallah, hopefully this helps. And if you guys have any questions going forward, feel free to reach out. Jazakallah khair, assalamu alaikum, and I'm sure I'll hear from you soon. Thank you.